Hi, and welcome back. It's me, Myron, and I'm just excited and the videos and some of the things that God has really been dealing with me about. I'm really appreciative, and I want to deal with this topic in regard to conflict. And obviously, that's a huge topic. And remember, the videos that I'm posting really are videos that deal with just being honest and just being open about some of the areas that my wife and I are dealing with, maybe even have challenges or struggling with when it comes to conflict or any other areas of marriage. I think that's really what's critical, especially in the church, is people that are just going to be open and honest about some of the issues. And conflict is unique, and I think we should just kind of talk about it. We've met different couples, my wife and I, since we've met, even after being married, that have said, we just don't go through any conflict. Marriage is pretty easy for us. Well, those are the couples that we really can't gain a lot from, because my wife and I had been experiencing a severe amount of conflict. Now, I believe that there are couples who have experienced great amounts of conflicts on different levels, but over time through their marriage, as God deals with their level of growth and maturity as becoming one flesh, then I believe they move through that level of conflict. And I do believe it's possible that couples can experience uh, little or no conflict, or if there is conflict, it doesn't look like conflict of old. It becomes a godly form of conflict, and even conflict becomes a strong term because the couple begins to breeze through issues and challenges that once led to fights and arguments and silence and not speaking to each other for days, even weeks, and all kinds of dysfunction. So I wanted to deal with this subject and make it personal. It's been about 40 days, right around 40, 43 days or so, that my wife and I have not experienced conflict on the level that we had been experiencing it prior to uh, today, um, or at least 43 days ago or so, something like that. And, I remember the last weekend, and that's only, it's almost about 2 months now. And, or we're in the second month, I should say. And I remember my wife and I would experience conflict every weekend. Most weekends it would just be a fight, and our conflict was unhealthy. We would speak to each other after conflict, but it wasn't the casual, loving, glorifying God kind of conversation. It was more of a, well, you gonna take me to work? Are you gonna pick up the kids? That kind of talk. It wasn't a embracing of one another, walking by each other in the bedroom, silent, not saying anything, one a day or 2 days, sometimes even more. And since we had conflict, or the last time we had conflict, I remember the weekend where we did have conflict was so bad. And my wife and I sat down and we just talked about how weekends were such a challenge for us. And, I remember we both decided that we were just going to pray because the weekend was coming up. And we sat down and we just prayed, and we really just gave that weekend to God, and wanted to just give him total control. And that was probably the first time that we actually prayed in regards to going into a weekend. Now, we had prayed together before, but I mean, that was the first time that I can remember where we just said, God, we pray that you have your way this weekend. Give us the wisdom and the heart to discern situations that will lead us into places of conflict that are not good. Since that day, up until over 40 days later, we've not seen conflict at all concerning the levels we've had it. There are times where during this last month, over just a month or so, or last 43 days, I would say things that would, whether or not my feelings were hurt, or I may say something in response to what my wife had said, and oftentimes where it would lead my wife to either kind of digress or shut down emotionally. She would just zoom past it, or maybe be apologetic or acknowledge something, or she would say something that would kind of bother me or hurt my feelings, where I would normally kind of just be off into my own world and kind of lock her out emotionally. We were just breezing right through conflict and still are. And so some of you may be thinking, well, they're only 43 days. It's a long marriage. They ain't been married that long or whatever, or they haven't been married that long. But that's a big deal. I believe it's a very big deal for couples who, like my wife and I, are experiencing conflict, and it's not taken as seriously or as if it is a big deal, because we don't have a lot of couples uh, really, I think, going down to the core of marriage and conflict. We deal with all these surface issues in the church about love language and, how to do this or how to make your wife happy or your husband happy. But there are issues going on. There are wounds and issues that are going on deep down beneath the surface. And that is essentially what this book has been about. The Secrets That Wounded Men Keep is going deeper in. And for my wife and I, we're very careful, and we're very thankful, and we're often congratulating God for what he's doing in our marriage, because my wife, having overcome cancer, and God has healed her from that, and that has been a blessing. But when we first met, that was a constant issue where she experienced a lot of excessive bleeding, a lot of pain, a lot of unsurety, a lot of fear, the potentials of it being terminal cancer. Of course, me dealing with some of the challenges of going in and out of the hospital. Oh man, it was just a lot going on. And then, of course, having a blended family, and then, of course, living in our in-laws' home, in a bedroom, and our life confined or constrained to a bedroom. And then the challenges went on and 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 on. And we're just thankful that God has really marked a place in our marriage. Though we're young or in our marriage, we evidently see that God has done something in our hearts to where we have truly been able to walk through some of the conflicts that we were not able to more than just a month ago. And I think we have to, as couples, acknowledge those monuments. If you remember in the Bible, when Joshua brought the children of Israel over the Jordan River, he instructed the elders and the children of God to lay down stones, which would be monuments for the children of Israel, for their children's children, to remember that this was the day that the Lord had brought them up, not just out of Egypt, but he had done mighty works for them. And so this is a monument. This is the stone that we can pick up and lay down at this point in our life. And when other people look back at where we have come from, we can say this stone meant that God has delivered us from a dysfunctional point of conflict in our life. Now, it doesn't mean we'll never experience conflict on that level again, but it does mean we have conquered that aspect of being very hurtful to each other, very dysfunctional. And we're looking forward to God taking us to a different place in our marriage and overcoming other challenges and issues that we face, because they're there. And it truly has been a blessing. And, I know that these videos are going to be an encouragement to somebody who really feels that their marriage may not be working. And a lot of times we think marriage is not about how long you have been married. Marriage is about a commitment and what God can do and being real. And, a lot of times couples marry and they think that, well, it's going to be beautiful, and they experience all types of dysfunction and conflict. And all of a sudden they think the fight, the warring in their marriage that they're experiencing is unrealistic, is abnormal, because they don't have a lot of people in their life that are being open. And so they feel like, okay, this is a sign that we're supposed to divorce. This is a sign that this is just not working, because nobody should go through this level of conflict. And that's not true. I guarantee you, whatever you're going through, somebody else has gone through it. As I begin to post more of these videos and share some of the conflict that my wife and I has experienced, unbelievable. And, I really just thank God. So I really wanted to put this video together. And one final thing I wanted to add that's really going to be of help, that really has helped my wife and I, is that you want to be mindful of the situations and the times that you and your wife come together in that are unfamiliar. Because weekends were a challenge for my wife and I, because I worked early in the morning and didn't get off till 6 o'clock, and we didn't get home until 7 o'clock when my wife would pick me up. And so, days during the week are not a big challenge, because, our schedule is packed with work and kids and all this other stuff. And I've got a video coming up on how to really kind of tone down your schedule for each other. But that was a big thing. And, you know, I'm working. And so there was no time really for conflict, because when I got home, I'm tired and it's dinner, bath, and bed. But the weekends were the free days. And so that is a situation where I think new couples should mark out as a red flag, or couples that are having dysfunctional conflict should mark that off as a red flag, or one of you should be willing to say, okay, if my husband doesn't recognize this as a potential threat in our marriage, then I should, or vice versa, the husband should, and you should. Here's another example. An unfamiliar setting was my wife and I had a chance to visit a Bible ministry in Orlando, Florida. That was the first time that we weren't even living together. I didn't even mention that. My wife and I didn't even we had spent more than a year being married, and we were not even living together. So we were living apart, as a matter of fact. And then we moved in her parents' house. Okay. And I I'm going to share a little bit about that testimony, but since then, God has blessed us with a 6-digit home in value, and He has completely turned our life upside down. And a lot of that we'll credit to our being faithfulness and just the favor of God on our life. However, and I had to share that testimony because some of you couples out there are dealing with some things and you may be lacking some areas, but God can come through. And I'm going to share a little bit more about that. But so we were not even living physically in the same house together, and we were married. And that was a challenge, but we decided to go out of town to visit this Bible ministry to do some work because they were looking for some ambassadors to come in and do some work. And we traveled down to Orlando. And I remember talking to one of my mentors at the time, and he said, you know, Myron, this is a time where you should be really considerate and prayerful how you're going to move in this situation with your wife, because this is new territory. You've not even lived together since the day you said I do, much less been in a car for a trip over 600 miles or so. So you're now about to embark on an 8-hour journey and you're going to be in each other's close space. So you can pretty much assure that you're probably going to experience some form of conflict because this is new to you. So just be ready. And I thought, well, you know, okay, well, we're excited. It's just going to be fine. And I tell you, before my wife and I got onto the interstate to get on the main highway to go to where we were going to Florida, we had to pull over at a gas station because conflict was so fierce. And I remember I thought back to some of the words my mentor told me about that. Don't think it's strange that you're going to deal with different levels of conflict. And the conflict we experienced was just absolutely on a level we had never experienced. Even at the hotel, in my next video, I'm going to detail that what happened a little bit more. So you need to check that video out. But I just wanted to say, recognizing the times of unfamiliar territory for you and your spouse and being prayerful. And I think that if I would have known that sooner, that, you know, things perhaps would have been easier earlier in our relationship when we were courting each other before we had even got married. But now I understand that even if you're a couple and you work every day or you work all weekend and then you have a vacation coming up or you have 3 days off or if you have an off day, those are the red flag days. Or even if you're in a situation where everything's fine and then all of a sudden you've got to pick up somebody else's kid and you got to get your kids, and now you got a different dynamic going on in your car as you're going to a soccer game or as you're going to dinner or whatever. Every situation should be taken seriously, that something that is unfamiliar or a shift in your environment can induce conflict very quickly. But if you recognize this potential, then I think that will alleviate conflict from that sense. And that's one less level of conflict you have to deal with over time. And we can deal with the other areas until we can become one flesh. So I know this video was longer. My name's Myron, but I really wanted to give this to you. I know it's going to be a blessing to you. Now I'm going to deal with a video about that trip to Orlando, and I think it's going to bless you. So thanks again. My name's Myron, and these are the secrets that wounded men keep, helping men come together, helping couples understand the dynamics of men and women. And I'm working on another book called The Secrets That Women Keep. I know it's going to be a blessing. The secrets that wounded women keep. Thanks. My name's Myron, and I'll